welcome everyone to this session at iMoot. And I was saying to Scott before, I really like the title, Moodle on a really small computer. And I'd like to thank our presenter today, so Scott Huntley. Had the pleasure of doing some training with Scott, and he certainly knows his stuff about Moodle, and he is one of those people that goes across, the education, the tech side and everything, has a huge wealth of knowledge behind him. Scott, appreciate your time today, and I'm looking forward to listening to this session.
Oh, well, thank you. That was a fantastic introduction. I'm a little bit humbled in that I view myself off just as a tinkerer often, as opposed to some kind of expert in a lot of these sort of things. So today I wanted to talk about, running Moodle on a really small computer. And just as part of that, I wanted to get into talking a little bit about my journey as the IoT Moodler. I kind of came across this sort of by accident. I really wanted to go to a particular Moodle Moot in Japan, and I thought, to get accepted as a presentation, maybe I should try to do something really crazy. And I thought, can I take two buzzwords or a few buzzwords and mash them together? So at the time, I had some friends who were doing a lot of IoT stuff, and I was not doing any Internet of Things stuff. And my background with e-learning, I said, hey, can these two concepts come together and can actually make something coherent? And I promised I could, and then I worked on actually doing it. And sure enough, I went to Moodle Moot Japan. I had a great time there. And then I actually came to Moodle Moot Australia as an invited speaker, so I was on the big stage. And I presented all these ideas about how it was possible in the future. It was more like in the future, I believe these concepts are coming. We're going to start to see IoT interact with all our LMSs and actually be able to feed some of that feedback in. And from there, I actually said, hey, can I actually start going to other conferences? So I went to a couple tech conferences, and it was kind of interesting because usually I'm the tech guy talking to the educators. And this was kind of the reverse, where I changed hats, and I'm the educator talking to the tech people. So it was the same presentation from a totally different viewpoint, if you get the drift. So I had a lot of fun with that. I played a lot with, at the time, and I still very much play with these. This is an Arduino Microcontroller right there, and that's probably the best. Yeah, that fits right there. So this is the kind of boards that I was talking about, and these are really simple sort of thing where you can like take sensor input and do something with it. So a lot of people will build like a weather station with it, and really simple, like build a weather station and they'll get like a RSS feed or something like that. So nothing really complicated. I wouldn't even go so far as to call this a computer, although I guess if I was back in the 80s, this is a computer. So Arduino, a great open source platform. I love playing with Arduino. I was really the Arduino guy. And in fact, I found I kind of became an Arduino board collector, and I've got about 40 Arduino boards. This one's actually a clone. So it's not the official Arduino brand. That's okay. It's open source, so people can legally make clones. It's not like it's a knockoff or something like that. And in fact, I started playing around with all these other little microcontrollers, and this one right here, I brought this one out. This little itty bitty teeny tiny one that actually runs Python, which I was like, oh, that's awesome. I can actually start programming Python, and that'd be really cool, except I don't know Python. But it's something that I'm in the process of learning. So I played with all these. I brought them to tech conferences. And because I was on the big stage at Moodle Moot, people started to associate me as the IoT guy. And it kind of became a little bit of typecasting because, I've got other pursuits as well. I started going to other Moodle conferences, e-learning conferences, and people would come up to me and they'd be like, what did you bring? What gadgets did you bring? Do you have a tie that lights up? Because I used to have a tie that lights up. Do you have, what do you have? What toys do you have? And I would be like, I have no toys. I've come to talk about other aspects of Moodle. And people were kind of, oh, that's sad. So I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, okay. I've kind of typecast myself as the IoT guy. But then I said, you know what? Maybe that's who I am. Maybe that's my entire role. I am the IoT guy. So I thought for this one, this was the first this is the first IoT. This is the first iMoot that I presented at. I thought I've got to do something IoT. I have my presentation, which, in here, see that my slides are wrong. It said coming up tonight. This was from yesterday's slide, and I did my second presentation last night. Was about what was it about? It's about competency-based education and some of the problems we had with that. You can watch the rerun if you want. And I ran it again this morning, and I was like, yeah, that's a great presentation, but it's not fun. Well, I mean, like, it was fun. I don't want to talk myself down, but it wasn't like the crazy hectic fun that I do with the IoT stuff. So I wanted to go back to that, do something just for the lulz. So I wanted to go back to experimental roots. This is who I am, and I might as well play with it. So I'm going to introduce you the Raspberry Pi. And this is a Raspberry Pi that I have right here as well. This particular one, you can't really see it. It's well, you can't really read inside there. It's a Raspberry Pi 3. So Raspberry Pi has been around for a little while. I'm sure you've heard of them. And they have up to 3 models now. And previously, the previous versions didn't have Wi-Fi built in. That's why Raspberry Pi 3 is awesome, because it's got Wi-Fi built in. I've been playing with this a little while. But again, it's kind of like not something that was really into my main wheelhouse until earlier this year. This is actually a full computer. I would call this a computer. I can run Linux on this computer, and it's, as you see, it doesn't come with a case or anything like that. It doesn't come with anything fancy. It's a single board computer, is what they call it. Now in Australia, the Raspberry Pi 3 is about $70, maybe more or less, in that ballpark. But what kind of things can you do with it? You can run Linux on it. You can a lot of people build them into like TV boxes, so they'll have it next to their TV, and they'll be able to run Kodi and get Netflix and all that sort of stuff. So kind of like an Apple TV alternative. I took one of these and I actually built them into an Atari 2600 emulator, because when I was a little kid, my parents didn't buy me an Atari, and I said, I'll show them. I'll be a 40-year-old man who makes his own Atari. Yeah. So I've done all kinds of stuff like this. I thought this was really great, and I thought, maybe I should try running Moodle on it. It turns out a lot of people actually are out there running Moodle. Well, maybe not a lot, but a few people are out there running Moodle. And if you do some searches on it, you'll find a lot of people have already built tutorials on how to run Moodle on one of these. I thought, okay, that's interesting. That's cool. But what if we ran it on a Raspberry Pi Zero? So the Raspberry Pi has got about 1 gig memory. The Raspberry Pi Zero, 512 megabytes of memory, and it's teeny tiny. There it is right there. So and as comparison, I know that not all of you are in Australia, but here's a Australian 2-cent piece. So we're talking about something about the size of a coin, well, a bit bigger than a coin, but in that sort of ballpark. It's tiny. It's actually been touted as, it's around $35 Australian, but some people say it's like the $5 computer. You can Linux on this. You could do all the things that I was talking about. You could run your Atari simulator, your TV box, all that sort of stuff. It's not the $5 computer. It's actually, that's a misrepresentation. People should be saying it's the £5 computer, because Raspberry Pi is from the UK. And I don't know, when tech journalists, sometimes they get their currencies confused. £5 is significantly more than $5 US, and significantly more than Australian dollars. But even still, it's still a pretty cheap computer if you think about it. Now, for me, it's around $40, but the big problem with it is everybody wants one. So, in actual fact, if I buy it on eBay right now, you're going to pay a premium, because, well, it's any kind of supply and demand problem, where right now it's in huge demand, and the supply is, they can't keep up. They can't make them fast enough. In fact, when it first came out, they actually, you can see it's small, it's thin. They actually had this on the front of a magazine. So there was like a Raspberry Pi magazine out there in the UK, and they gave away like, a couple thousand of these actually on the magazine. It was awesome. I actually managed to get a hold of 2. So with this one, I've actually installed Moodle on it, and I had Moodle up and running. Now, for the presentation, last night I tried to actually do some kind of way to demonstrate this and demonstrate the kind of the, what am I trying to say? How it's responding. I've lost my train of thought. I tried to demonstrate the effectiveness of running Moodle on it, how well it was able to run Moodle, and the answer is it's not. And I couldn't really display it last night, so I didn't even try this morning. When I went to set up, I was like, well, there's no point in me actually trying to connect it to the computer again. I was trying to show the responsiveness. It is bad. It's not great. It's not the worst Moodle experience I've ever had, but it's not the best by far. It's pretty miserable. Any kind of you click, you wait a bit, and I guess it's maybe similar. It's better than a dial-up experience, but it's not great. But I just think it's awesome that you could actually run Moodle on this computer. Also, when I'm talking about the price of I've spent $40. Part of the problem with the price of this is you have to actually build in the cost of accessories. So this board, the Raspberry Pi Zero, it doesn't have a proper HDMI port. It's actually like a mini HDMI. So to actually connect it to a HDMI monitor, you need one of these adapters. That's going to add, $10 to $20 somewhere in there. It only has one USB port, and it's a micro USB port. So really, you need a hub. That's a hub that's going to cost you another, $10 to $12, and it's actually got the networking part of that as well. So all these little things start to add up, and it's not the $5 computer you thought it was. But I actually started looking. I'm a big Kickstarter guy. I actually found this on Kickstarter. It just closed. You can't. You'll have to wait. But this is going to be a hat, an IoT hat for the Raspberry Pi, and it's actually going to have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi built into it. And these Kickstarter people, Red Bear, they've actually been successful before too. So I felt confident in bidding on this, or not bidding, but backing this project. So the idea is that the hat's going to fit on top of this. So if you think about that, you've got your Wi-Fi connection. You've got perhaps you're just going to power it through a battery. And you're walking around and you've got Moodle in your pocket. Like literally, it's that small. You could actually run your Moodle from your pocket, your backpack, your whatever. You have a web server up and running that's that tiny. I think that's awesome. Yeah, we'll pause on this screen. I wanted to show a couple other boards, and one of the other interesting ones that I have. Now, I talked about Kickstarter. This is a Kickstarter project that I backed, and it just came in the mail like maybe a month ago. This is the Pine 64. Significantly larger, sure, but the Pine 64 is $15 US. And if you actually take a look at the board, it's got a full-size USBs. It's got full-size HDMI. It's good to go. You don't have to buy all those adapters. So all of a sudden, you're looking at this full computer, and I've installed Debian on this. I ran Moodle on this one as well, and the performance is a lot better. So we're actually talking a legit computer that you could run Moodle on, that you could run any kind of application like that on. For $15. Now that's the minimum. This one's actually the 64 plus, so that's $19. Still $19 US. That's awesome. I did kind of make a mistake. There actually is a built-in Wi-Fi. Most people actually get the Wi-Fi version. I don't know why when I backed it, I didn't bother to do that. So I actually signed up to the store to back that. But the problem with these guys is sometimes with Kickstarter, people are so successful that it almost backfires, and they raised like around $1 million. They did really well, but then now they're trying to ramp up production to meet all those orders. So I did order the Wi-Fi module, but it will get sent to me in hopefully August, but realistically September, I'm thinking. But that's pretty awesome that we're talking about the price of computers go down and down. I've got a couple others that I wanted to show. This is the Voodoo Neo, and let me write that down because it's kind of hard to pronounce that. Voodoo Neo. The Voodoo Neo is yet another Kickstarter that I backed. What I love about this one, though, this is one of my favorite boards. Absolutely cool. It's actually got Arduino headers built into it, and inside their operating system, they actually have Arduino. So if you're an Arduino fan, or if you're like a Raspberry Pi single board computer type person, you've got the best of both worlds. In fact, a lot of people will actually, they'll have the Arduino IDE, and they'll connect to, they'll use their Linux, program it, and then be able to run it as the Arduino. So it's like, if you're into any kind of robotic, any kind of thing like that, this is an awesome board. Really powerful. Right here, I have an Altoids tin, maybe. Well, it is an Altoids tin, but inside there's actually a computer. Yeah, that's a BeagleBone Black. The BeagleBone is a computer that fits inside an Altoids tin. They did it on purpose that way. Yet another great computer. The advantage of this one, all the previous ones, you have to have a micro SD card. That's actually the operating system. This one's actually got some memory built into it, so you can actually, install your operating system and run it, and you'll be fine. And the last one I wanted to show. Now this, I'm going to fake something here. This is an unboxing, but I did actually take it out of the box. I took it out of the box last night, and to be told, I couldn't help myself. I took it out of the box when it arrived on Friday last week. But this has been in the mail. It's been in there. It's yet another Kickstarter for a while. It's called the Latte Panda. And the Latte Panda, same thing, built-in Wi-Fi, built-in all the single board computer type things. But it's the beauty of it. It's got Windows 10 already pre-installed. It's a Windows 10 one, so if you're not a Linux fan, you've got a Windows 10 alternative. So the thing is, this is great and all. This is a lot of fun to show all these things, and it's a lot of fun to hack around with this stuff. But what's the big picture? So I kind of have my takeaway message here. We're in the age of the single board computer. So some of these I've actually demonstrated today, but there's a lot more single board computers out there. And they're kind of all the spectrum in terms of power and performance and memory and so forth. But we're finding they're coming out more and more. It's the perfect storm. Yeah, as I wrote this, it's the perfect storm of crowdfunding like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, of innovation, of people trying these things, and of cheap electronics, of the factories there in China, outside of, I can't pronounce that place, outside of Hong Kong, but that entire area where they're producing all these boards and they're just doing all these fantastic things. It's coming down in price. So there's actually this entire rise of the maker space. So all these people are building their own. It's one thing to go out and buy a weather station, who cares? But to make your own, it's that much more exciting. It's much more like hands-on gritty. I think it's amazing that we're entering this age where it's not just computers, it's not just electronics, but even like woodworking and knitting and sewing. All these old crafts are coming. That place just out of, yeah, I know China, but it's like Jen or someplace like that. That was supposed to be an H. Then it doesn't matter. Yes, that place. Yes. Is that, how do I pronounce that? Shen. We'll come back to that. I've been distracted now. There's been this rise of this maker culture, and it's almost like people want to go back and get their hands dirty. They want to go back to doing their own, create your own, make your own thing, and I think that's fantastic. But then you also look at things like, so some of these boards that I've shown are, the price range in the $70-$80. Some of them are cheaper. This is an Indiegogo project that just started, and these guys are from Brazil. And they're trying to make the $1 board. So obviously the performance is not going to be great, but at $1, that's a pretty amazing thing. You think about that. And their pitch is like they want to get it out to classrooms. they want to start teaching people in Brazil and in other countries, sort of developing world type countries. They want to start teaching these kids STEM. They want to teach them science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and they want to do that through really cheap technology. I think that's great, and I've of course backed this one. I mean, it's a $1 board. Of course, I'm going to back it. So, I mean, like, this is more than just the fun, more than just the lulls. The part of the picture I'm coming from with this IoT is just the idea that in his keynote at the last Moodle, Martin Dugiamis, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said Moodle will fade into the background. He meant that Moodle's not supposed to be something that everybody notices. It's supposed to be something that helps us do our job teaching. And it's supposed to be something that's not like the center stage. It's more in the background. It's working. And things that work well, you don't notice them because they work so well. And that's the idea. And as soon as Martin said that, I said, you know what? He's actually talking about the Internet of Things. And maybe that's not what he meant to say, or that's not what he was thinking, but that's what he's talking about. We're going to start to see all these cheap sensors and the technology. I didn't bring in a lot of the sensor stuff because that was last year's presentation, but we're going to start to see those sensors interact with Moodle and actually change our lesson plans. And we're going to see Moodle interacting with sensors, devices, APIs, IoT. It's going to update the activities. It's going to update the lesson plans. So here I teach at trade college. They teach horticulture. We're going to start to see those weather devices and like the soil moisture sensors actually change what the lesson plan is inside Moodle. I believe that. I firmly believe that. We will see this. But in actually putting this presentation together and speaking with, one of the other presenters here, Lindy, about the topic, Lindy Klein, she actually started to point out something else. I think it was a throwaway comment on her behalf, but she said, this is going to be great stuff, all these Raspberry Pis for distance computing, or distance learning. And I thought, I didn't even really think about that. But if you think about this, at $40, can you afford to send a board to every student? Well, maybe $40 is a little much. But, at $15, it starts to become a little bit more practical. At $1, can you send a board to every student? Of course you can. And so what are we going to do? We're going to send out these boards to people. They're going to hook them up in their house in places where the internet is maybe not great. And we'll send them pre-made lesson plans and everything like that. And they'll send back when they're ready to be marked. They'll send back this, the micro SD card, which is the operating system. It's the software. It's everything, right? They'll just send that back, and that's got Moodle on it. So this particular one has got Moodle on it. This is from the Pine. I just pulled it out of the Pine. It's got Moodle on it, and they'll go in, they'll do all their assignments, all their whatever, and they'll send it back. So people ask me, what's the difference between this and, say, Poodle, or this and other different ways that we've come to solve the problem? It's just an alternative method. But I was thinking, in classes where we're actually teaching stuff like STEM, we're teaching programming, we're teaching people how to do web design, we're teaching anything like that, we can actually send them the computer to do their work. And at the end of it, who cares? It's $15. They keep the computer, or we'll build it into the cost of the lesson. We'll charge them. As part of the lesson, you'll actually get to keep the computer. And it's not just like a computer that you're afraid to open. It's one that you can open, you can hack, you can attach devices to, you can attach sensors to. I think that's a fantastic use case. So that's what I think that we're looking at in the future. And maybe I'm wrong, but in the meantime, I think that the maker culture is going strong. We're going to start to see more and more kids play with this stuff and build things that. I've watched videos where kids before the age of 10 have built balloons and sent them to the edge of space, and they're actually getting telemetry back, and they're getting pictures back, and it's all because of these small little tiny boards and tiny little computers. I think it's great stuff. In terms of STEM, I think this is fantastic age. So, I guess it comes back to this. I said through all these presentations, the future is now, and that was kind of my key phrase for last year. But it's kind of funny that I didn't even really think about some of the use cases and the idea that we just have to select the SD card. Sometimes you lose sight so much. You're spinning out the key phrase that you lose sight that this is a Moodle that I could lose in my briefcase. This is the full, and it could still be running, and I can't find it in my briefcase. So sometimes you forget how now is now, and it's like the future is here now. I can have that. So anyway, that's my pitch. That's kind of. I am now unmuted. Oh, probably somebody else's. Shenzhen, is that how I say it? Shenzhen, China. That's just outside of Hong Kong, and that's where they're building all this stuff. Am I right? I know Shane's in Hong Kong. That's why I can ask Shane. Yes. Okay. And Stuart, you've got 3 Raspberry Pi Series 2. You have Moodle on one. Oh, so you know this stuff. You're all doing this stuff. Database on the other, repository. So you've got them all doing different parts of the Moodle. Oh, that's awesome stuff. That's awesome. Yeah, I thought, maybe I'd be the first to run Moodle on a Raspberry Pi. I'm not. And then I was like, maybe I'll be the first to run a Moodle on a Raspberry Pi Zero. Probably not. I do think maybe I've got a claim to the first person to run Moodle on a Pine 64 because not everybody's got that. It's not very common. Maybe. I hope in the next couple of days to run Pine on my Latte Panda because for sure I'll break the record with that. But I'm looking to break the record for first to run. Anybody have any questions? Comments? Hate mail? Anything? Is my screen frozen? Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for stopping in and watching. I mean, I know that this is a very different kind of presentation than a lot of other people's sessions, but I'm just kind of looking at it from, well, this is what I do. I like to hack around. I like to have some fun with this sort of stuff. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for all your kind words. Oh, okay. So this is a question. I suppose this goes back to a question for Stuart. Do you have the database in the same instance, or is this a question for me, like how I'm running Moodle and some of the problems that I'm having with the performance on the Raspberry Pi Zero? Because yeah, maybe if I tried that where I actually had the database on a different Pi, maybe that would help. You want a Latte Panda? Latte Panda is very. I don't know. I ordered it a long time ago, and I'm in a lot of trouble for. I continue to back stuff on Kickstarter, and I got the message last week. My wife said, "Do not back anything else on Kickstarter." So I backed something on Indiegogo. Latte Panda is interesting. I actually got it with the screen as well, and down here there's a connector, and that's the connector for the 7-inch screen. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to build with it, but I'll do something with it. It's kind of cool. It's got the Wi-Fi built into it as well. What is the speed like for students interacting with Moodle on these things? Yeah, it's probably the speed with this one was awful. I'll be dead serious. It was awful. I mean, like I said, it was usable, but I'm thinking, and one of the reasons why I didn't set it up as a live demo for everybody to connect, because it would just, I think would kill the connection and my video feed would go down and then you wouldn't have a presenter. But secondly, I think that it would start to melt the system down. Like if we have more than one person operating Moodle on this, I don't think it would be very good. This one, I wish I had some stats on this. I think this is more like 4 gigs of RAM. This one was actually pretty decent. So I don't know. Yeah, that's another thing. I really like to set up. I'd like to see somebody actually take these boards, set them all up, run Moodle on them, actually run them in some kind of benchmarks, get some benchmarks, some kind of test, come up with a way, actually see what's practical, what's useful, and what's possible. I only came up with this presentation like a week ago, so I went looking for a little bit of research on that, didn't find a lot. I was thinking about this, and usually it's the person who proposes an idea like that who actually has to carry it out. And since I've got all the boards here, I think what I'm going to be doing for the next year is try to come up with some kind of benchmark system, some kind of test bed, and I'm going to try Moodle on all these boards and find out some kind of quantitative, try to figure out what's the best bang for your buck sort of thing. So I've got the prices. I'll figure out the prices in one standard form, probably US dollars, and try to rank the performance. And I'll come back to iMoot 2017 with actually a definitive answer of, is it possible to actually use these in a full-on production environment? I'd say just based upon what I've done, this one, no. This one, yeah. The Pine 64, there's a possibility. I mean, I still think if you're going to seriously run Moodle, unless it's for something special, you should probably just go with regular hosting. But yeah, some of the bigger boards, the more powerful ones, and they're coming out with even more powerful ones. Some of the Kickstarter stuff I've seen, they've got a board out there now, and of course I backed it. It can run 4K, 4K screens, and I'm like, wow, I get to get that board. I don't know what I'll do with it, but yeah. A load balance solution with multiple Pis. I think that's a possibility, and well, I've only got 2 Raspberry Pi 3s, but I've got a few Raspberry Pi 2s, so maybe we can actually try to build something together. Yeah. Actually, I forgot to show this. That's another problem with it. I actually go out and buy the cases, the beautiful cases. This is a beautiful case here. This one is look, it's all laser burnt wood and everything like that. So that's my Raspberry Pi 3. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. Showcase it, put it on top of my TV, and I'll run Kodi or something like that. But it's got the Raspberry Pi inside it. Wow. Yeah. So that came in the mail, and my wife was like, "What are you doing? Stop buying Raspberry Pi stuff." So I've been told. Any other comments? Yeah. Look, I don't know what else to say. I think everybody's a little bit quiet and stuff like that, and that's cool. It's depending upon where you are. It's early in the morning. Actually, no, there's some New Zealand people here. It's probably, what time is it? It's like in the afternoon. Yeah. But I want to thank you guys for being a great crowd, for listening to me. Like I said, I've got a lot of passion for building stuff like this, and I think that we're in a new era when it comes to STEM and being able to teach these programming concepts. It's a lot more fun to build these maker projects than what it could be. I mean, like, it could be a very boring environment to teach programming, or it could be a lot of fun. You're building robots. You're building all kinds of things that track airplanes. You're building really crazy cool stuff. That the Raspberry Pi, I think, is fantastic for the educational opportunities that they've got out there. So it's exciting times. It's like I said, I think it's the perfect storm of innovation and these things like Kickstarter, crowdfunding, Indiegogo. I think, yeah, this is a great time to be out and be hacking.
Hi, Scott. Just thought I'd quickly jump in at this point and just say on behalf of the iMoot team, thank you very much for that session. That was great.
Oh,
You
thank
appealed
you.
to the geek in me. It was awesome.
Thank you. I felt like I ran a little bit short, but that's okay. This is the last session of mine for iMoot, so now I get to become a participant as opposed to a presenter. So maybe I was just rushing through it.
That was awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And yeah, thank you for watching this. And go out and buy a Raspberry Pi.